Motivational Mondays is the perfect way to set the tone for your week. Everyone can use motivation. Mondays are amazing, rich with opportunities, full of potential, and now motivational. Your week begins here. Good Monday morning. It is so good to be back for another segment of Motivational Mondays. And of course, I am Geneviéve Jones-Wright, the founder and lead empower mentor of Motivation.In.Action, or MIA. This morning, kicking off February, which is of course Black History Month, is an awe-inspiring man who has so many titles because he is and does so much. He is a torch bearer, a Black history educator. I dare to say that he is a bridge builder, and he is a new author. He's also my cousin. So I want everyone to welcome Phillip A. Brown. Thank you so much for being here with us on our second Motivational Mondays. I can't wait to get into this conversation with you.
You're so welcome. Thank you, guys, for having me here.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to be here with you to enjoy and kick off this Black History Month.
Of course,
So
there
thank you.
is no better person to be here to help us kick off Black History Month at Motivational Mondays because of all of the things that you do. And the reason why I call you a bridge builder is because you not only educate our youth and young adults about Black history, you educate older generations and you bring it to life. And really, your story is just inspirational because of all that you do to preserve history, keep it going, and at the same time, you are creating history.
The truth of that is the inspiration and the power comes from our ancestors and understanding our history. And so to celebrate this kickoff Black History Month, to be able to really talk about the essence of who we are as a people, because we're not this moment in time. We're the totality of who we are, even before we came to these shores. But when we landed on these shores, as Maya Angelou says, even through those struggles, we continue to rise. And so, any insight, any experience, the energy that I push forward is truly channeling from my ancestors. And I have been so privileged to have have had the parents and the grandparents and the great grandparents that I have a connection to. And what I'm saying to you is, I'm bringing to this space my dad, who passed away in 2020. No, actually on election day, November 3rd, 2020, at 94 years old. Um, my other two grandparents, my maternal and paternal grandparents, passed away in 1999 and 2000, and they were 95 and 107. My two grandmothers, uh, maternal and paternal, passed away at 91 and 95. So I've been connected to those um, elders for a great portion of my life. Both my grandparents lived within a mile and a half of where I grew up in San Diego. I'm a second generation San Diegan, and we, as recipients of so much, we have to go back and uncover that history for our children, because our children don't have a true sense of belonging in this country because they're growing up not understanding the races. That's probably the wrong word. I want to say the systems that have been built that have perpetuated white supremacy in such a subliminal way that our children are walking through this existence not having any understanding of the power of their ancestors building this country.
You just hit on so much of Black San Diego's rich history, and I love how you weaved in our need to inspire our children and give them a sense of belonging through the telling of that history. You come from a legacy of Black business owners. Can you tell us a little more about that?
My granddad opened and had the first Black grocery store in San Diego on 31st and Imperial. Um, and if you've been around San Diego long enough, you know Imperial from 32nd to 25th was like our Black Wall Street, right? That was our Black business district. My granddad created businesses that employed people in the community. My dad created businesses that employed um, us organization, Black men and women, CORE, Muslim. They're all working together in a corporation he created right there on 29th and Commercial. And it was so dynamic in that time that uh, I was going to say President Ronald Reagan, but he was Governor Ronald Reagan, flew in and he's holding my dad's hand while they cut the cake on this enterprise. And he's saying to dad and the rest of the community, this is the kind of enterprise that the Black community, now he used a different term, urban communities need. You know, the kind of enterprises that are empowering and uplifting the community. So I couldn't help but be the person who I am because of the history or the lineages or the, I mean, osmosis, if nothing else. But Dad was very deliberate in speaking to me about his endeavors.
Your father has been a huge source of inspiration to and for you. And when we call you a torchbearer, it really comes from this idea that your father passed you the torch that he carried and that he kept lit. So, can you talk a little bit about how he passed the torch to you and how he inspired you to continue the legacy of educating people about Black history and preserving it?
Dad was 6'4", 250 pounds, and he was didn't have a problem carrying a gun. So he couldn't be involved in the nonviolent movement protesting. So he was involved in taking money from the Jewish Federation of Women and other organizations out here to Alabama to help bail them out. And so that was his travels. And so the men and women that were part of that time, Dad introduced me to as he passed the torch of passing that history of Selma and the Voting Rights Act to our children. Ambassador Andrew Young, um, Reverend C.T. Vivian, and Reverend C.T. Vivian, as I sat in his home, and most people don't know who Reverend C.T. Vivian is because on the morning that he passed away, that afternoon, John Lewis died. So the world talked about John Lewis and they didn't talk about Reverend C.T. Vivian, who was literally on the ground doing nonviolent protests, I think back in the 30s. And so he was truly a pillar and one of Dr. King's lieutenants. And so sitting with him in his home, he said to me, and it's funny, he calls everybody Doc. And his daughter Denise says, Phil, that's because Dad don't remember everybody's name. So everybody's Doc. So he says, Doc, let me tell you, I'm not mad at the children for not knowing this history. I'm mad at you, your generation. Why didn't you teach them this history? I was like, wow. Wow. Reverend C.T. Vivian, I totally understand. That is my commitment to Dad, to you, to your generation, that I am going to use whatever breath I have, whatever platform I have, to teach this generation that history.
So, what I love about this Olivia Jones book is that our kids can pick up this book and learn about the civil rights movement. And they probably won't even recognize that they're actually learning through an educational tool because it is so entertaining. Selma is central in the Olivia Jones story. What does Selma represent?
You have to go to Selma. Selma is probably the most significant uh, geographic location in this country in terms of that whole process, which changed not only this country, but it changed the world. I mean, it is a place that Ambassador Young will say, it's a place that we have to preserve. It's probably one of the most important places to be preserved for African Americans in this country. So why Selma? Selma is our history in such a powerful way. And it's an empowering um, legacy for our children to know what 10, 11, 12, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids help to do.
Behind you, there is something that says, help preserve the house that supported the movement. So in the words of Dr. King that you hearken back to a lot, which I love, where do we go from here? And what are you doing to help preserve the rich history of Selma?
Miss Amelia Boynton, her home was the hub for the meetings and the strategy for that movement. They were gathering at a time when it was illegal for two or more to gather in public. They would break it up, go to jail or whatever. So they had to do all that in secret. And so understanding that history that gave us the power that we have today, it will give you an understanding of the significant role that children played.
Well, we are certainly going to have you come back so that you can share more about how we can help you preserve the Boynton House. It has been my pleasure to talk with you on this morning. Let me tell you, it has been truly motivational and inspirational. My brilliant cousin, Phillip Brown, thank you so very much for being here to kick off Black History Month at Motivational Mondays. And next week, we're going to continue the conversation where we share the story of Charles Bonner, who is a civil rights lawyer and an environmental justice lawyer, who also was recruited at the ripe old age of 16 to participate in the civil rights movement in Selma. So we're going to talk about his experience on the front lines, fighting for voter rights, fighting against segregation and against racism. You do not want to miss the continuation of our Black History Month conversations. I'll see you next week.